Hi, I'm Shan. I'm a student from Blitzmekan University. This is my JP2 project, which calls Why Tomatoes Are Tasting So Bad Nowadays. If you are interested in it, let's get ready with me. Let's first talk about the reason I want to do this project. I'm a big fan of tomatoes and tomato dishes. I remember tomato from my childhood as soft, juicy, sweet, and sour, but tomato nowadays are getting harder and harder to eat. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Here are some comments taken from the video about tomatoes on the Bilibili, which is a video site like YouTube. From these comments as well as from my daily life, I have summarized some of the problems with tomatoes nowadays. The tomatoes nowadays are not sour enough, not sweet enough, and don't have the flavor of a tomato, and it's too hard to eat. The purpose of this project is to find out why tomatoes are tasting so bad nowadays. Secondly, I want to talk about the history of tomatoes. Tomato origins in Central and South America around Mexico and Peru, and the history of tomatoes consumption can be tracked back. Around the 16th century, Spanish colonizing brought the tomato back to the Europe. At first, Europeans thought he was a possession-oriental because of his bright red color, and it was a member of the Solanaceae family. Until the 18th century, that tomato began to be used in cooking in places like Italy and Spain, and it gradually became the part of European diet, especially in Italian, where it became a central ingredient in traditional dishes such as tomato sauce and pizza. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the tomato spread with the immigrants to all parts of the world, including China, and gradually became integrated into the global food culture. After the end of the World War II, the tomatoes was still a white spice. It was thin skin and juicy, soft flesh, but belongs to the white berries, easy to roast, and cannot be perfectly adapted to the modern agriculture of large scale harvesting and the long-distance transportation model. Therefore, the standard of tomatoes was not whether they were good to eat, but whether they could be produced on a large scale and whether they could be transported over long distance without rotting. Therefore, in 1915s, scientists of various countries began to improve the breeding of tomatoes. British scientists found that when the tomato plants contact in the ice skin, the tomato plant can grow in a stem, which saves the labor cost of repairing the forked branches. And in the Netherlands, an origin was implanted in tomatoes, which makes them pretty free for weeks after picking. In the United States, in Florida, because of the need of large-scale machines harvesting the barrenness of the land, the tomatoes have to undergo long distance from the farm to the supermarket and will be repeatedly dropped. So they needed a thick-skinned tomatoes that wouldn't root and could be transported long times. And so the thick skin, less juicy, hard fruit tomatoes was bred. So this led me to think about a question: that did the tasty part of the tomato disappear with the zinc modernification? Here was a paper which published in Nature Genetics in 2019. The paper analyzed 725 genome sequence of tomato R's that are species and genographical representative. The results showed that compared to white tomato, cultivated tomatoes are missing 4,873 genes. Those lost organic diversity and unique flavor. The most important of these is an allele called TOMLOC. This gene catalyzes the synthesis of lipid release volatiles, which affects the flavor of the fruit. The researchers found that the gene was absent in 93% of grown tomatoes. In white tomatoes, it was present in more than 91%. In conclusion, tomatoes become unplantable because of the farmers who are afraid of tomato rot, the scientists who moved the genus, and us who are far away from the origin of tomatoes but still wanted to eat them. In order to meet the market demand, the tomato is becoming more and more different from his original appearance.